morning, and welcome to Interfaith Spiritual Center Worldwide, where we do believe there is a power for good in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it, that nothing happens by chance, that we're all here by divine appointment. We heard the call, we answered, we showed up. And we know that 90% of life really is showing up, and the other 10% is up to us to be mindful. And our basic theme has been about mindfulness this month. Today is Mindfulness on the Journey. And mindfulness is paying attention. And I can remember one time I was sharing with Louise Hay, and we were in my jacuzzi, and I was sharing about something that happened in the ministry in San Diego. And I was, sharing, I was quite passionate about it and quite emotional. And she said, very matter-of-factly, "You weren't paying attention." Oh, was that it? Okay, let me just take that for a moment, take it within. Because we have a lot of emotion on things. We project outwardly. But the truth is, when we are paying attention in life, when we are opening to that energy, really nothing escapes us. It's all about energy. Remember what Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of life, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. That it's not about personalities. It looks like personalities, it looks like people are doing it to us, it looks like all this stuff happens out here in our energy field, but the truth is, it is a vibrational frequency. What are we calling in to our personal energy field? So when we begin to take responsibility for our lives and create those people, places, and things that support us, because many times in childhood, we were not in environments where we were supported, and we go out and perpetuate that state of consciousness until one day, the day of enlightenment, we realize that we have a choice. The day of enlightenment is when I know that I have a choice, that I can do something about it. And in my family, I was raised in an alcoholic family. And my sister, she was an addict and she was an alcoholic. So it was interesting. I would go to court and I would plead her case that that prison was not going to be the place for her, and she was not going to learn, grow, and evolve there. And that we were raised in an environment of abuse. And the judge would always say, "Then why didn't you turn out like your sister?" And I would always say, because I realized I had a choice. And once we realize that we're at choice, that we can make different choices, that we can move through what is expressed and take all those experiences, open our hearts, because the heart is the doorway to the soul. We open our hearts to one another because we've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and I want to be redeemed in my healing. I don't want to perpetuate it. And my daughter has said to me so many times, "I can't even relate to your childhood mother." And I said, thank God that you can't. Because I would, I am the pattern breaker in my family. We break these patterns, we move on to a higher vibratory frequency, and we begin to energize that frequency rather than move down to the lower vibrational energy that no longer serves us. And how many times have you had people come to you and they tell you the same old story, and it's over and over and over. You want to say, get a new story. But they're in that groove, and they keep it in place by verbalizing it, by sharing it. And we know that water seeks its own level, doesn't it? Doesn't water seek its own level? And like attracts like. So through the law of attraction, energetically, we keep it in place until we decide that this no longer serves me, that I'm going to do something different. I'm going to open to a higher vibratory frequency. So mindfulness on the journey reminds me of the Apostle Paul to the Corinthians. He said, "Let that mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." Now Jesus of Nazareth let go of that humanity and became the Christ. Each of us has the Christed nature. We each have that place within us that is the compassionate Buddha. And Buddha said, man, woman is the result of all that they have thought. All that they have thought. We are the sum total of all of our thoughts. So where thought goes, energy flows. We feel that, we experience it. And when we begin to open to a higher frequency, we allow those experiences in. And that's why I love our way of life. That our life shows up in front of our face moment by moment by moment by moment. And sometimes we don't like what we see. So we make a shift. And remember, shift happens, right? We make that subtle shift in consciousness. And we begin to do something different. I remember a colleague of mine who is a great author, and he goes all over the world lecturing. He said, I was just exhausted, and I didn't feel good. And so I went up, I was waiting for my airplane. I went up to the little snack bar thing, and they were serving all kinds of things. And I said, I'll have an orange juice. And he said, this wonderful Hispanic woman said, honey, you need to eat something. He said, she sounded just like my Jewish mother. You need to eat something. You need breakfast. You need something. And so he thought, well, maybe I'll have a bagel. And so he said she toasted the bagel and she put all this butter on it and he had his orange juice and bagel. Suddenly, he felt better. It was the energy, the frequency, the love in that moment of someone cared. Honey, you need breakfast. You need something more than what you're putting out at this moment. And that in the frenzy of life and at airports, and believe me, I know all about airports. And every time I do something silly and they go, well, you weren't supposed to go that way, that was for this, da-da-da-da-da. I go, oh, dear. I see your passport, and then they see how old I am, and they go, go ahead. Age does work for us at times, right? It does work. And then, I hear him muttering, my God, 70, oh my goodness. And now 71, right? So energetically, that's just also a number. But when we are all in this thing called the human race, it's not always a race. Now, I used to live in the Angeles National Forest, and it was very beautiful. We had horses, and it was just a wonderful vibration. And we would occasionally, we had these little wood rats. They were so cute. They looked like cartoons. And my husband, Neil, my late husband, would have a heart traps, and he would trap the little wood rats that were so cute. And then he would take them out into a field, and it was really interesting. He said, at first they would try to get out, and they'd try to eat through the mesh and try to, get it, rattling the cage like you wouldn't believe. But, he would let it be and then take them out to the field. But by the time they got out to the field, several hours later, it was interesting. He would open up the little trap door, and they would just sit there in the cage. And so he would, do this, and they were still kind of clinging to the cage. And then finally he'd turn the cage upside down and shake it. And the little wood rat would run out. And we talked about how much like life, where we are in situations that no longer work for us, and we're clinging for dear life because that's the known. This is what we know. So we're clinging to something that no longer serves us, that no longer works for us, and we're clinging tightly instead of letting go and letting God do what God does best by means of each and every one of us. Because you are as close to God as I am ever going to get. And I am as close to God as you are ever going to get. And when we really understand that we serve that presence in one another, when we say namaste, we're saluting that Christ presence, that Buddha nature, the holy I am that arises through the energy field. That's who we are addressing. That we cling to that which no longer serves us because it's the known. And the minute we let go and we let God, something begins to happen to us. And we begin to expand our universe. We begin to acknowledge that there is a power for good in the universe greater than we are. And we are definitely using it. And this is why it states in the Bible to be as little children. Little children trust. There's an innocence. And we're not talking about being gullible and foolhardy. It's being as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove, as Jesus said, and I love that. Be as wise as a serpent. Be mindful of what's going on in the energy field. But be as harmless as a dove. And when we open the space and we allow that energy to flow through us, that's what we're attracting back into our energy field. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. And when we draw the larger circle, that's the space of miracles. Be still and know that I am God. To be mindful of that presence within ourselves and every living being on the planet. And that when we don't relate to people, we're not always going to relate to everybody, you know that. But to acknowledge and to respect that place within them, what the quantum physicists call the God particle. That they're now recognizing that there is a God particle within each person, that energy, that we salute, that we acknowledge, that we open ourselves to, and that we open to life. And one time someone interviewed me in, it was the San Diego Life magazine, and they had said that I was reserved. And I was just stunned because I have never seen myself reserved at all. And I thought, I wonder where she got that. And then I was in a seminar and we were like recalling incidents that occurred in our lives, and we were going all the way down to like 3 and 2 years old. And I had remembered that my mother had a best friend, and I was the only child until I was 4 years old. And I was about 3 years old, and she talked about this little boy that was going to come and visit. And I remember so exciting. And are they going to come today? It was like Christmas. No, not today. Going to come today? Not today. Going to come today. Finally, the day arrived, and they were coming, and she brought my mother's best friend, and she brought her little boy, and they opened the door, and I just went running and embraced him and held him and kissed him. And my mother said he spent the rest of the day under the bed. He was totally terrified. Totally terrified. So I said, you know, I guess I made that decision that in my life, I won't give you the full 100% of who I am until I get to know you. Because I don't want you spending the whole day under the bed, you know, trying to get you out. So we make these interesting decisions at these very, very tender ages. And then we expand through that, and we realize the universe really is a safe space, and that we create our experiences of safety. And that when things go on in the universe, to send out our light and our love, and to realize this day in whom we serve a purpose larger than ourselves. Like the Parisian man, I just was so deeply moved when he said, "Nothing will make me hate." When Booker T. Washington was walking down the street with a dear friend, and there was a white gentleman walking toward them, and he just took his elbow and he just shoved Booker T. Washington off the sidewalk. And he fell, and he got up and he brushed himself off. And his Caucasian friend said, "How can you allow this? Oh my God, I feel terrible." And Booker T. Washington said, "I defy to make any man. I defy them to make me hate. I will not hate. I will not put that frequency of energy out," is what he was saying. And what I loved about Booker T. Washington, he discovered the peanut. I mean, I'm a vegetarian. I love peanut butter. And someone said they saw his botany laboratory and said, "My gosh, everything's growing and it's beautiful and flowering. How do you do that?" And he said, "I simply love them. I simply love them." Love being the strongest healing power in the universe. I simply love. So today when we recognize that, let's put our love out into the world. Let's acknowledge this power that we claim is here now within us and everywhere present. Let's acknowledge together that this is a way of life that allows us to be in the world but not of it, to be of a higher spiritual value, to recognize this day in whom we live and move and have our being, and that it's safe to be who we are and to show our emotions and our love one for the other. It's the angels that we are unaware of wherever I go in the world. I have an affirmation, a declaration is, the angels go before me and prepare the way with ease and grace. Only the mystical, the magical, and the miraculous come into my experience. And before every flight, I say this. When we land, I say this. When I'm, whatever foreign country I'm in, and believe me, I got lost in Hamburg, and I was on the train, and I was, I thought I was leaving from one airport to go to Ireland to another airport, and I looked and I wasn't, and it was like, oh my God. And I had met a man in Africa that was a presenter when I was presenting, who lived in Hamburg. I called him and he said, and he was originally from Ireland, he says, Sharon, I'll meet you there. And I thought, it was so wonderful that I could make one call and have someone say, I'll meet you there. I'm there for you. That is God flowing through humanity. That God is always there for us, has always been there for us. We open to that energy, but we have to take action. We put the works with the faith, because faith without works is dead, right? We put the works with the faith. And when we put the works with the faith, we receive those answers, because the answer is already within the question. It's about being mindful of our gifts. It's about showing gratitude for where we are at this moment. And it may not be where we want to be, but what am I grateful for? What is it that I can go within and say, thank you, Father, Mother, God, for this great opportunity that's set before me to know the truth. Because it really is about knowing the truth. And when we know the truth, we open to the miracle. And the miracle is there. It's alive and well. It's awaiting our recognition of it. So on this glorious, glorious day, I acknowledge you. You heard the call. You went through the whole parking thing. I acknowledge each and every one of us that maybe walked a few steps further even on their walker, and that we had an intention, because when you have an intention, you create a way, right? And if you don't, you create an excuse. That's how that works. When you want to do something, you create the way. When you don't, you make an excuse. That's just how life works. And an old African proverb that I'll leave you with is, if you want to travel fast, go alone. If you want to travel far, go together. Where are we going? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. And together, right? Together. God bless you.
Together.